And just to be clear, because I thought that I don't even remember exactly where I read it, but I thought that it said um, Ghost Machine was going to be under the umbrella of Image, but you said it's its own thing, like completely separate.
We are our own company, but one of the things that we're doing is we are the ghost, we are the creativity, we are the spirit that then plugs into the machine. And so the machine in this case could be a publisher like Image. It's like we looked at it and it's like, well, we could become our own publisher, but then we have to hire all these other people. We have to set up all these divisions. We have to figure out, or we can go to somebody like Image who is great at what they do
Right.
and they already understand kind of where we're coming from with an independent kind of thing. Let's make a deal with Image and let's work together with them so they can do the best that they do and we can do the best that we can do. Um, Same goes with we have a store right now on Threadless, and it's like we were looking at merchandise, and it's like, well, we could get our own warehouse, we could print off our own T-shirts, we could get a staff that then ships those T-shirts worldwide, or we can work with a company like Threadless who's been doing this for like 20 years. We can plug into them and work out a deal with them. We give them the designs. We have full control over our designs, but they do all the printing, they do all the shipping, they handle all the returns, and now we have a product going out there that we didn't have to pour a ton of money and time and power and resources into getting off the. It's already off the ground,
Right.
and the same thing will go probably when we make deals with maybe a Hollywood studio or something. It'll be like, let's plug into somebody who knows what they're doing and they know what we're doing. We know what they're doing. Let's help each other. Let's work together and let's put product out that's gonna be to the high standard and quality that we believe in. So
That makes a lot
uh,
of sense. It's not like you
yeah,
start your own studio. It's I'm going to shoot my own movie and I'm going to hire a director and I'm going to get all these people and do all this stuff and then distribute it and blah blah blah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
and we really felt like too. It's like it was a bunch of us artists kind of and writers splitting off from DC and Marvel, and we really kind of looked at it and it was like, well, that's what the original guys at Image did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they have that spirit. And from day one, when we talked to Image, they were like all in. They were like, we want you guys to do it with us. We want to work with you guys. Let's figure out something. Let's work together. Let's like we really believe in this. This is awesome. Let's do this. And so
Is
they from day
McFarlane
one they
still
were
in the loop on there? Is he still part of that?
which
Todd
who
Todd McFarlane, is he still
um
a player
we
on
haven't
Image?
talked to him. I think it's more or less like Eric Stevenson and them are really like in the publishing side of things.
Uh-huh.
I think Todd he's got the whole toy company thing that he's really going hard with.
Right.
Um, but uh, but we've gotten messages from all the Image founders, in the last couple of weeks since we announced, and they're all in, and they want to contribute and do different things with us, and you know,
Nice.
like I really want to get Todd McFarlane to do a cover for me.
That'd be cool.
That,
Yeah.
like I mean that would be awesome. But again, I understand he's pretty busy, so we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be cool though.
But that's kind of the idea. So it's like, yeah, we are our own company, but we're trying to work with others who do their job well
Mm-hmm.
and plug into them, and we both can benefit from that, you know. And that allows us to be creators. We can just we have people on our team that are working the publishing and the marketing and all that stuff, but we want and the business side of things. We have some really great people running the business side of things. But we, like myself as a creator, I just want to draw and I want to create books and I want my focus to be on that. Um, but I have, even just in this last year, I've learned so much about the publishing industry and about the comic industry and the struggles it's going through, and hearing out from retailers, and it's like you can't help but want to get involved with that too. And I want to learn the business side of things as well. And Jeff's been through it. He was pretty high up at DC there for a lot of years. And so it's been great to just sit and learn and, learn aspects of the business that I never understood before. And now it's like, okay, I understand this stuff now. I'm learning, and it's really cool to have that opportunity. I wouldn't have that opportunity at DC,
Mm-hmm. Good.
What is mentioning Jeff, well, wait, by the way, I love that you're the ghost. The machine is what you use to get around and whatnot. I think that's fantastic. That's an awesome play on words. I dig it. Now, as regards Jeff, like, what's the greatest thing so far that you've learned from Jeff, speaking about what you just said? First thing comes to mind.
Well, overall, the greatest thing I've learned from Jeff is collaboration. And I think that goes back to what we were just talking about, like the ghost and the machine. It's like you need comics is a game of collaboration. It's the best books and the best work comes out when usually when a writer and an artist are teamed up and on the same page and working together and have a passion and are communicating and just going. Like, that's when the best books, even you could even, like, even though like Frank Miller wrote and drew like, Dark Knight Returns, he still was working with Lynn Varley and Klaus Janson. Like, there was a collaboration that came together and it created a stellar book. Jeff has always been about that. It's always been about that collaboration, putting aside your ego and coming together as a team, listening to what the other person may want to do, even though there's been times when Jeff has written stuff and I'm like, I don't know if that works. And he'll be like, well, if you want to change it, let's change it. And then I'd be like, no, you know what? I trust you, and then you do it and it ends up working. Right. There's been other times when we have discussed story things and been like, I don't know, is this the right direction? And then, a couple of days later, he might go, you know what? I think let's change that. Let's do something. Let's go this route instead. I found a different way of getting through that story problem to get to the means over here. And it's like, there's that collaboration, that openness that I have with Jeff. And I've really learned that's something that sadly, a little bit of inside baseball, but sadly, that it's very lacking in comic books, is that collaborative team effort. It's usually you get a script, you never talk to the writer, you get the script, you do what the script is, and that's it. And maybe you'll get a note that says, hey, great job on that book. It's and I didn't really like that. Jeff is kind of like
there's a connection.
Yeah. And well, the other thing too is he calls me like every day. Like, okay. It's not just emails. It's like he calls me and we'll talk for an hour, and it's like he goes over the story. We'll have small talk and we'll talk about family stuff. And then we go into the story and then he'll talk about he'll be like, what page are you on today? Oh, I'm on this page. Oh, okay. Well, remember, like I'm going to set this up in like issue, blah, blah, blah. So make sure you drop a little hint here. I put that, and then he'll start pitching you what's going to happen. And that you can't help but get excited and just really, you become so involved emotionally in the story.
Got it.
And, I just, again, like, nobody does that. Nobody picks up the phone anymore. I mean, I'm really bad at it. Like I very rarely call Jeff, mostly because he's so busy. Like, I never really know when I can get it, like when he's free to call him. I just usually wait for him to call me. But that, just those little things of talking on the phone and talking out through problems and sometimes frustrations with what's going on in life or the industry or whatever. And it's like, we can be a sounding board. It just, again, and Jeff's like that with everybody. That's how he works with everyone. He's always calling this person and that person, having meetings with this. Like, he's very he believes in the art of collaboration. And it's sadly, it's something that's missing from comics. It's just like, guys they just want to email and never talk and just do the script. I'll do the art, and maybe it turns out well. And usually it doesn't,
Mediocre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
the
mean,
older,
one other book that was like that was when I did that Swamp Thing with Tom King. Like we didn't talk much when I was working on it, but we had met. We were at a con and we were kind of discussing the story and kind of pitching it back and forth, and then it kind of became what we were kind of pitching, and then that became like a book that everybody seemed to like, and I enjoyed working on. And so that was one of those things that kind of happened with that book. There was but it still wasn't the same. It wasn't the same collaboration that me and Jeff had. When I'm working with Jeff, it's like I don't want to work with anybody else, because it's like I hit it, and that this is what I'm looking for as a creative partner.
Mm-hmm.
that makes 100% sense. I absolutely understand what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah.
It's more than just, doing the job and that's it. But it's just like life. The older I've gotten is the importance of relationships that we have with people who are near to us, and of course, people who are dear to us. And oftentimes the people who are near to us become dear to us by the relationship we have. So I can just see you're just oozing the enthusiasm that you have for this project with you and Jeff. And I mean, personally, myself, just seeing Jeff speak, he seems like a really cool guy, just like a really down to earth, just good dude. So
he is. He's the kind of guy that you can just talk about about anything. And he's kind to everybody. He gives everybody time. I've never heard him say a bad word about anybody. Like he's just, he's a great creator. He comes up with great stories, and he's truly passionate and loves comic books. Like he loves it. It's all he ever thinks about. And it's like, even when times when I'm feeling down or I'm losing my confidence, he can pick you right up and like get you right back on your feet and going again. And I'm really, again, just very blessed to have had this opportunity to work with him, for as long as I have.
Well, I must tell you, man, I appreciate that, first of all. And second, anything that Jeff has worked on as the years have gone by, I've been like, I have to pick that up. I have to, even if I'm not I've never been into the JSA, but like I got to pick up his past JSA work and then the new thing he's working on, because it's Jeff Johns and he knows what he's doing. And like you said, he loves comic books, and that radiates through the page when you're reading it. So when I saw you and he working on the Justice League, man, like my head was like, boom, like I have to buy this because I love your art. I love Jeff Johns' writing. It's like a match made in heaven, man. So I am super excited to pick up Rook Exodus. It comes out in April. Is it beginning of April, middle, end? Do you have any ballpark?
We're trying to figure that out now.
Okay.
But we're trying to figure out a way of really having a big boom launch with all these books. So more details will be released once we figure that one out.
I was going to ask you if you can do your best Brian Hitch English accent, but I won't put you on the spot.
Don't make me do it.
No, you had mentioned that you take a while to do your art, and so hence I appreciated when you guys did Three Jokers. You had it finished when it came out, and now I know Brian in the past, like he said, he used to kill himself with his pencils, but then he found a certain way to speed up without sacrificing quality. Have you asked him about that at all, or is he giving you any pointers? Or
no, we haven't really talked about that. But he kind of ribs me for that, for taking so long. But it's just, I don't know. I used to work quick when I had to work quick. I can do it. Like, when I was doing Justice League, I was doing a page a day, but I killed myself doing those pages.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
But I had a standard I wanted to set. And so it was like, but then I found I just couldn't my wife and I, like when I was working on Justice League, my wife and I had our first child, and that really like opened up my eyes. And I was just like, okay, I can't be working 7 days a week drawing 14 hours a day anymore. I just can't do it. And so that's when I kind of, Jeff and I kind of decided like, okay, let's that's when Three Jokers was starting to kind of form. It's like, let's just take our time and do something special and work on it. And it took a while for the book to get off the ground because he was really involved with all the movie stuff. But I made a conscious decision. It was like, I want to do quality books over quantity, but I want the books and the projects I work on. Yeah, there's some Justice League stuff. Yeah.
Gorgeous,
man. Gorgeous stuff.
Yeah. Thanks. I really want everything that I do to be special. I don't just, and so it's like, I'm going to pick the quality books and really work hard at that so that those books become something special. And again, like Brian Boland only did so many projects, and yet he's like a legend, right? Like he's like really did like Camelot 3000, Killing Joke, maybe a couple other things in there, but everything he did was super high quality. Judge Dredd, but it was all like high quality stuff, right?
And distinctive, like that's Brian Boland.
Yeah. And so it's like, I just want to really, that's what I want to do. And that's why it's like, Rook might not be a monthly book, but I think like the work I'm putting into the world and the pages and I'm hoping people, when they read it, they're going to be like, whoa, like they're going to have like some of those mind blown moments of like, wow, like look at that artwork. And it took me forever to draw it, but I'm hoping it'll leave an impression and, and people will be like, I really want to see what's coming next. I want to see what's going to happen in the next issue. What crazy thing's going to happen there. So,
cool.
that's kind of how I've kind of seen my career going and what I've been trying to do with it.
Well, I had volunteered this to Scott. I said, Jason Fabok's pencils, the best way that I could articulate it, it makes me think of like Jim Lee's pencils and Gary Frank's pencils had a baby. And I think that's you. Is that fair to say? Or do you think there's an artist that I should think about too? Just
David Finch, probably too.
Right. Because he's like your mentor, right?
Yeah. So I learned a lot from him, pretty much learned how to draw from David. So a lot of my base of how I approach things is like the way that Dave thinks. Like the way I structure my anatomy and stuff and shadows, it all comes from Finch. Because it just, when he explained it to me, it just made the most sense. And so, but it's funny because like when I first started off, I remember saying to Dave, like, Dave, everybody's like, because I was really drawing like exactly like him. And I was like, everybody's going to think I'm just like a David Finch clone. And he said, good. He's like, you won't ever be starved for work.
Hey,
like, and but then he said, he's like, when he started, he learned from Mark Silvestri. And he said, my original work looked like Mark Silvestri. And then it took me about 5 years to find my own style by bringing in other influences. And he said, the same thing will happen to you. You're going to spend 5 or 6 years kind of just being, you're trying to figure out this work and trying to figure out how to draw this and that. And where he's like, you're going to draw like me because that's kind of what the base, the foundation. And then he said, but don't be afraid to start looking at other artists and bringing that influence into your work. And so I did start to do that. And it was like, I did things that a lot of artists would probably tell you not to do. Like I would read reviews of my books and listen, and then I would read what the critics would say. But I would look at it from a perspective of like, okay, well, they said that my faces look really stiff and I have no expressions. So I'm going to look at somebody like, I'm going to start looking at Gary Frank because I really think Gary draws the best expressions in comics. They look excellent. So I started really studying Gary and how he draws faces and how he gets different expressions out of his characters. And so I started to incorporate that because I wanted to address that critique. It's like, okay, I can work on that. Let's do that better, and then, sometimes it was things about layout. So I really started to look at like Mike Mignola, I really love his layouts and how he lays out a page and how he lays out panels. And so I started to look at him a lot. And then it was like dynamic stuff. I started to really look at Ivan Reis, because he was doing a lot of the Blackest Night and all that stuff with Jeff when I was coming in, and I was really like influenced by him. And so when I was doing Justice League, I was like, I really want to capture that kind of energy that Blackest Night had. So I had his book there, and I would look through it just to get like some inspiration, some ideas of posing and stuff. And then you start, when you're looking at that, like Dave used to, one of the lessons I used to do with Dave is he would do stuff where he'd say like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, you're just going to copy Ivan Reis's work. So like take his book, sit there and just draw the poses and try to figure out how he draws his anatomy, because it's different than the way that Dave draws his anatomy. And so we did little lessons like that with like him. And I remember Brian Hitch was one of those lessons, and Gary Frank we did, and Travis Charest, and a couple, and even Mike Mignola. It was like, let's like try to learn to draw like them, because you may find that you really like how that artist approaches certain things. And now you can incorporate that into your visual language, and it gives you a little bit of a different look, a little, it's like, it just brings that into like that influence into your work. And so I really took that to heart, and I don't pretend to be something super original. That was never really. In fact, Dave again, he just always said, draw like the guys who always make all the big money and who draw the biggest books, because those are the guys who never are starving for work. If you can draw like that, you will be on all the big events and you will get the big books and you will never be looking for work. He's like, if you want.
It's funny that you say that, because before we got together with you tonight, Brian and I were preparing for this. And so I was grabbing material, and he reminded me that we have the dark seed or dark side. Pardon me for showing my Rob Liefeld. But anyway, I said, oh, I didn't realize, I forgot that Jason had done some of that. I thought it was all Jim Lee. And then Brian said, well, it was Jim and Ivan and then you in the course of those 7 or 8 books. Mm-hmm. So, hearing you talk about that influence is just kind of interesting. I mean, so then you were right in those footsteps, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And but that was always kind of like the goal, and I followed what Dave told me, and he was right. Like he understood it. He's like, you can go off and you could do a very much more weirder style or more experimental style, but he's like, you'll struggle to find your place. And he's like, this is a job in the end. You want to be on the books that are going to help you make money so you can pay your mortgage and everything else. So draw like the guys who he's like, he used to always say, like, when we're at a con, look at who has the longest lines consistently. And it would be guys like Mark Silvestri and Rob Liefeld and McFarlane and Jim Lee. It's like all these guys, it's like they have a very distinctive kind of style. And it was Dave. I remember sitting at tables with David Finch and watching the lines of fans. And it's like, okay, like this is, people really like this. There's a visceral quality to that kind of drawing. And I think that's what, and it's also what I like as a comic book fan. Like I love Jim Lee. I love David Finch. I love Mark Silvestri. Like that's the stuff that I get excited about. And when I think about comics in my head, that's how a comic book should look. So it's like, I want to do that myself. It's like, I want my work to have that, because those are the things that spoke to me when I was like 14 years old looking at comics. It was that kind of artwork,
Yeah, sure. Super cool.
And it's not to say I don't love other people. Like I love like Sean Gordon Murphy. He's got a very different style, but like I love it and I respect it, and but I can't draw like that. My mind doesn't think that way. My mind thinks more. It probably thinks too rational and too realistic in a way. Like I wish I could stylize a little bit more, but I just don't know if I'll ever be able to do that unless I really just get a project where I can mess around and whatnot. But to me, I'm comfortable where I'm at, and I just want to keep doing what works,
realism is a style. It's no
Yeah.
less a style than something else, you know. So you do
And I
have
don't think my work's
stylized.
I don't think my work is real. It's still that comic booky kind of look, but it's like the kind of comic booky look that I like. It's that,
Yeah.
again, everything kind of goes back to a base of like Jim Lee and David Finch and Silvestri, like that kind of a look, you
See,
know.
I see Jim Lee like Scott has looked at Hush, and what got me like hardcore back into Batman comics is when Jim did Hush. And then when I saw your work, I saw the influence. But to me, and this is no knock on Jim Lee, of course, and he's the biggest thing since sliced bread in comics, but your work is another step up from his work for me. I feel like your work is even more refined. And there's just there's a visceral beauty to it like even your Mr. Miracle, dude, you drew Mr. Miracle for like what, 3 pages worth? How many panels? I was like, this is the best Mr. Miracle I've ever seen in my entire life. I love your Batman. Like your Batman is on point. I think I might have even like shouted out like 2 or 3 years ago to Scott Snyder, like, hey, you should do like Hush 2 with Jason Fabok. That would be great. Like your Batman is my absolute favorite Batman. Your who is that the retailer you did that Superman exclusive for Action 1000? Was it Mile High or
Yeah, maybe. I'm not really
it's the
sure,
one?
but
Yeah, you drew it. And it's like the doves behind it and whatnot.
yeah.
Dude, I bought that. I sent that away to CGC, and you and Brad and Jeff, autographed it. Your Batman and the Flash, the ones that had the button that you did with
Oh
Tom
yeah,
King.
yeah.
I sent those away to CGC to have you sign. Like, I absolutely love your art. Talking to you is like talking to a rock star for me, man. Like really, like I am. You are the best. You are the greatest artist I've ever seen to this point in my life,
Well,
and I mean
awesome.
that 100%, man. hundred
I
percent.
I appreciate that. I feel it's funny though, like going back to the Jim Lee thing and Hush. Um, Hush was actually like the book that when I read Hush, I don't know what year I read it. I know I was in college, so I was probably like 20 years old. Like it was my early 20s. But Hush was the moment when I read that book, I knew I wanted to be a comic book artist. Like I
Okay.
really wanted to pursue it. And I knew I had never read, like I had read comics before then, but like I have the collected edition, one of these
Hey,
this one
Nice.
sits beside my desk all the time for like reference. I still look at this all the time.
Super cool.
But it's when I read this book, like I number one, I was blown away by how Jim drew Batman. Like I'd never seen it. Reminded me the way he draws his mask. It reminded me of like the Michael Keaton kind of way, like with the sharp nose and everything. But it also had this great, this like a classic comic book, style to it that I had never really seen before. But just again, the visceral and the energy and everything that Jim was doing, it blew me away. And I remember reading that and going like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is how I want to draw. I love this art style. And I feel like Jim Lee's art was always there, even though I wasn't reading X-Men comics. I love the old X-Men cartoon show growing up, and all
yeah,
that stuff is so based on Jim Lee's work.
yeah.
I just always feel like that look and the way that he drew was always there. Like it was just always part of my life and an influence there. And so like I really personally I feel like I just try to, yeah, that's so good.
I love that cover.
Yeah.
It's just like boom.
Yeah.
I can
I
see the
really,
influence. Your stuff is more, I think, more sophisticated. But
Yes.
considering that this is like what was this, 91 or 2 or 3 or something? That was just like huge.
Yeah, no one had seen anything like it.
but it's funny. It's like I sometimes I wish I could draw more like Jim, where it's more a little more energy and loose with my line and just act like like he has a way of drawing his anatomy, which it's it doesn't really, sometimes it doesn't really make sense if you actually break it down, like, but it works every time though. It doesn't need to make
For
sense
the
because,
story, right? For the
yeah,
story.
yeah, but he's also like, he just stylizes the way that he uses chunky shapes sometimes that just work so well for the anatomy of a character. And I think way too much more literal, and I'm trying to like actually like draw like like I love this panel here where Batman is like
Yeah.
grabbing on to this gargoyle. There's so much energy, like
Mhm,
you
mhm,
can feel that he's like, his muscles are like, his shoulders like snapping or whatever, like you can
mhm,
feel it. And
mhm.
just the perfection of like this leg coming out here, and this other one, like that's a hard pose to just like come up with and draw, and
Be
he
easy
nails
to
it.
make it. It'd be easy to make it look stiff, like that's a pose. But like you said, there's a kinetic energy that your eye picks up on.
Yeah, he
Yeah, and
definitely has a lot of action.
yeah, and so sometimes I wish I could actually draw a little more like that, and but my mind doesn't allow me to. It doesn't, like, just the way I think about things isn't the same. I mean, I guess that's how, but that's what separates different artists, right? Is like the way that they think about the art and the way that they draw. It's the way that you see it, and I wish I could see art more like Jim, like I've ripped off that
Boom.
Batman pose before because it's just so good. Like
Yeah.
it's just got so much action. Like the cape makes really no sense of what he's doing, but it works so well with that pose. Like it just works. Like it has so much action, and just the way that he's drawing the shadow, like he dares to shadow out that leg, but it
Mm.
works,
Yes, yes.
So, but yeah, that book was a huge influence on me to really, really got me into comics at that point. I was like, I know what I want to do.
That's cool.
Well, you I saw your sample page for I think it was for DC where you had Batman like kicking through the car. Man,
Oh,
that was amazing. I was like, only like Stevie Wonder would say no to this guy. Like those pages, to think you did that as your samples, like those were good enough to me to be in a comic book. And like I still remember seeing those online. I think it was like 3 or 4 pages you had.
yeah. I think Dave Finch wrote a little script for me, and then
Yeah.
I put
It
it
was
together.
it was absolutely fantastic. Well, your Batman to me is just like, as you're talking about Jim Lee, I'm going through the absolute three Jokers here. And this is like primo to me, man. This is where it's at. When I gave Scott the hardcover that I have, because this got announced, and when it got announced, I was so excited. It was in the middle of the day, and I just had to text Scott. I'm like, "Oh my god, did you see Omar on Near Mint Condition?" I was like, "Did you see Omar announce the Absolute Edition?" I pre-ordered it that day. So now this is what I read so often. I go through it to look at the beauty of your pages. I even grabbed your I've had this for like 3 or 4 years now, the black and white one.
Oh yeah.
Based on your rendition.
I got some of the these are like the originals here, some of the Three Jokers stuff. So like these are like the original
Wow.
inks.
You draw an awesome Joker too, man.
Oh
And
yeah.
you drew each of them were actually distinguishable. Like they didn't each look the same. Yeah. The
Yeah.
criminal, the comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were fun. It was a
So
challenge.
is that a like an artist edition that you have for yourself, or is that
No, these are like the original pages.
the original pages?
Yeah, like
Wow.
see, like
Wow.
there's like the pencils.
Mm.
And so I did like I penciled it out, and then I scanned it, I think, and because I wanted to change something. I forget what it was, but I made a couple changes, and I even like darkened it so I could see like, okay, what's it going to look like with all the black? And then like, then you get like
Mm.
the finished ink on the side there. Like I
Wow.
think I changed the eyes just ever so slightly, you know.
Yeah, I think you did.
But like there's the Batman and the Batgirl
Batgirl's awesome too, man. Yeah, and the
Yeah, she's
splashes of
great.
blood too. And Brad told us, he's like, oh yeah, DC wanted to hand the variants out to other artists, and Jason was like, no, I'm gonna do them myself. It's
Well,
like,
yeah,
wow.
that was part of the. So what had happened was like, yeah, they were gonna do like their classic thing where they had like 20 different artists do a variant cover.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened, the book, we were done the book, and then we wanted it to start coming out in April, but then COVID happened. And
Mm-hmm.
so all the stores were kind of like, it actually turned out to be kind of like a blessing in a way that it was delayed because of the fact that we would have released the book at that time, but I wouldn't have been able to do all these covers and stuff. And we would have had, again, all these other artists come in and do these covers. And so the book got pushed back to like November, and they were really pushing. They were like, we want to get all these artists to do these covers. And part of me, I was a little selfish, and I was kind of thinking it like, I spent like 2.5 years drawing this book. And I was like, I don't want somebody else coming in here and doing a bunch of covers. Like, I want to do them. Like, why can't I do them? Like I want to, if I spent all this time, I want to make money off of the book that I worked hard on. From now until forever, I want to sell Joker prints at a con, like I don't want somebody else selling 3 Joker stuff. I want, like, Brian Boland didn't have other people working on Killing Joke, it was just him. So I kind of just said, like, what if I draw all the covers? And they were like, well, how can you even do that? And I said, well, because I think they were under the impression I would do like a bunch of different scenes or different like action sequences and stuff. I was like, no, I was like, what if we just took the Joker, and we have these 3 Joker faces and we have the 3 hero faces. What if we just did more versions of the Joker from the different eras that these Jokers came from? It would be kind of fun, And actually, it was Mark Doyle, the editor, who he kind of originally came up with an idea similar. He was like, what if we just had the Joker like as if he was in like a photo shoot doing these different poses, so each one was a different pose from that Joker. And then I said, well, what if it's more like he's in the costumes from the different eras? And so it kind of worked out, because these, I was able to then work on these images and kind of touch on the different eras of the Joker, and that was a lot of fun to do. And
well, I'd say you did Bolin proud, man, in that Killing Joke one.
Yeah, I was really trying to channel him with a lot of this stuff.
I love the one with the fish.
Yeah, the fish one. I was just gonna see if I could find that one.
It's funny too that you guys talk about the Bolin book, because when we were getting ready to do this and I was going to my shelf and grabbing the book, I grabbed the Bolin book first by accident.
Yeah. I sometimes see it like the Killing Joke and think it's my, like, on a t-shirt and think it's my work. I'm like, oh no, that's Brian Boland. But I lived that
That's
book
awesome,
for
dude.
like 2.5 years. Like I had Killing Joke. I like reread it like 20 times because I really wanted to kind of find that Brian Boland line work in a way, and kind of just even compose, like, even the way that I was doing my panels and stuff. I wanted it to feel kind of like like he was doing his panels from Killing Joke. So I wanted 3 Jokers to feel like a spiritual sequel to that, even in the way that the artwork was presented. And
well, I think
there's a
you
lot of
achieved
little
it.
hints and stuff in the panels that link back to Killing Joke. I think in the absolute, there's like a Easter egg thing at the back, and I kind of went through some of that stuff, but there was way more, even than the way that I broke down the panels and stuff like that, where I actually was like, the compositions were exact from specific panels from Killing Joke, to make like a kind of a mirror of what was going on there.
Got
Oh,
like
cool.
these.
Super cool.
Yeah, there's some of the pencil stuff there in the process of those panels, or those covers. But yeah, and I also felt too, it's like, well, okay, if we're gonna ask people to buy, like, if you're going to get a whole bunch of people, like I don't really like the whole variant gimmick in comics. Like I think it's ridiculous that there's like 20 covers on books and stuff like that. But it was like either I do the 20 covers or somebody else does the 20, you know.
They're
So
gonna
it's like,
get
okay,
done.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. But it's like, how do I think the whole thing with like the faces, there was a consistency now to the covers, and so it makes a collectability. It's like, well, if you get this one, you might want to get the other ones too. So because there's like, it's like a set, right? And so I think that by doing the faces on all those covers, there was a collectible aspect to that. And everybody, like whenever I sign books, they'll be like, this one's my favorite one. And it'll be, maybe the Red Hood one, or the fish one, or like everybody kind of has their favorite they bring me that one to get signed. It's not necessarily the A cover or whatever. It's like, oh no, this is my favorite Joker. I really like. So it's kind of that was the really fun part about that project. And yeah, and the other thing that was funny too is it took me like a year and a half to draw the main 3 covers.
Mhm.
Like I redrew those Jokers like so many times because as I was drawing the book, I was kind of figuring out how I wanted to draw them. And so finally, near the middle, I drew the actual covers that appeared on the main covers, the main 3 Joker and the Batman, Batgirl, and Red Hood. But then when we did these variant covers, I had to I think I drew like 2 or 3 a week. It was like, I just had to just go. But by that time I kind of figured out how to draw the Joker the way I wanted. So I was just like, okay, here we go. And I'm just going to draw him kind of thing. So
That's kind of what Brad said. He said it was just like super crunch time, but it was fun, but it was just like boom.
Yeah. And so they're not as refined. If you look at them, they're not as refined as the main 3 covers, but they still worked really well. And with Brad's colors, you can't really tell. They just look great, and they look consistent. There's a consistent color language to them all too, which makes them all fit together. It's cool.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I had the Batman one and the comedian one with the crowbar, and I had those sent away to CGC to have you guys sign them. That's awesome. That's awesome. Just real quick, behind you, do you have like I see that's He-Man, right? You have?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool. I loved He-Man growing up.
That looks like Frazetta. Is that Frazetta?
No, this is a David Finch painting, like an original painting.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So like Dave, like on his YouTube channel, he does like painting and art streams and stuff. And I really love He-Man. And so he had painted this, and I think I reached out to him on on Facebook, and I was like, hey, do you have that? Can I buy that painting from you? And I never heard back. Right. And then like 2 years later, I'm at a convention, and his art dealer came up to my table and was like, hey, Dave, I've been like waiting because I think that COVID had happened, and then I didn't do many shows. And so it took me like 2 years to get out to a show. And he's like, I've been holding this for like 2 years to give to you, but you haven't been at any shows. He's like, Dave wanted you to have this painting.
That's so cool.
That's awesome, man.
I still need to get it framed, but it's really awesome. It's just really cool to see all the little brush strokes. And one day I want to actually sit down with Dave and learn how to paint like that, because I think that would be really fun to learn a new technique, to maybe do a painted cover or something in the future.
It definitely does not look Frazetta up close, but from a distance in the background, it's not necessarily so much about the, well, I would say the pose and the dynamic or the physicality of the character is very Frazetta. The background is like totally Frazetta. Like you said, it must be an influence of his, I would guess.
Oh, yeah, Dave loves Frank Frazetta. That's like one of his biggest influences to his art.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, good call, Scott. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, Jay, how often did you say "I have the power"?
Actually, not too much. I kind of missed the He-Man cartoon.
Okay.
I had a couple versions. I had like an episode or 2 on like a tape, but I actually had like and this is I had like the movie, like the 80s movie. That was
With
like
Dolph
my,
Lundgren. Yeah.
yeah, like I had that and I would watch that. And I loved the ending of that movie, the big fight with Skeletor at the end. And so, and then as when I got a little older, I really got into like action figure collecting. And so like He-Man was one of those things. And then they've been re-releasing all the kind of like the old figures. And so my son really started getting into that stuff. So he and I bought him a whole bunch of He-Man stuff. So we have like the Castle Grayskull and everything like that.
Mm.
Um, and again,
My
it goes,
brother is about 10, 11 years younger than I am. And so I was too old for He-Man, but he was right in the nook. And well, I don't know, when he was probably like 7, he got a Castle Grayskull and he got the action figures. And I remember playing with him on the floor with it and doing the whole thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're great figures, and I love classic toys and stuff like that too. And Lego. I collect a lot of older kind of stuff like that.
Fun.
Yeah.
I had Castle Grayskull when I was a kid, and my mom, I don't, at the randomest times, we'll have friends over for dinner, or even girlfriends I've had in the past. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, Brian. Yeah, he used to put a pail on his head and go outside with a stick and go, 'I have the power,' like that." So He-Man is very close to my heart. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Well,
that picture,
that's
man.
one of the reasons why you're my friend.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Jay, you've spent a lot of time with us. Thank you for being just so cool, man. You're even Brad gave us some good information, so thank you, dude.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
And
Sorry
we
it took so long to get on your show.
no, I'm just
Totally worth
grateful.
it.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I had messaged you last year, I knew your son was young and, plus your drawing and stuff and so on and so forth. So I'm grateful you appeared. We're going to have Jeff on in January. So
Great.
yeah, I was able to that nice young lady Rebecca helped me pin him down. So
Great.
you talk to him again, be like, "Hey, I was on this Sheehan show. They got you in January. You're in good hands. I'd appreciate it. We'd appreciate it." So
Yeah, for sure. I think
Looking forward to Rook.
yeah.
yeah. Well, one of the things we were talking about was like we really got to get out there and kind of get the word out about Ghost Machine and what we're doing, and um, we've really seen that things are different with the way that fans are getting their comic book information. Like things have even changed even just in the last like 5-6 years. Like I used to always go to like CBR and like Newsarama to get like comic book news, and they were always like up on stuff. And now
Yes.
like a lot of those websites, they don't do that anymore. So I'm finding I'm going more to like YouTube videos or Instagram posts and stuff like that. And so when we've been looking at like how do we get out the word more about these books and these projects that we have in this new company. And it's like, well, I think it's the YouTube audience. Like I think it's YouTube, and we got to get out there and get on some shows and talk directly to the fans. That's the cool thing um, about YouTube, is that you can have a conversation. Like we're having a conversation, but the people who are listening to it too, they're getting to know you personally, and they're getting to see your passion for the projects and your reaction to things. And I think that that's a really cool thing to do and to kind of connect, with the readers. I'm very grateful, and that, for the people who have supported my career and who've purchased my work and, read it and enjoy it. Like I'm very, very grateful for that. Like it's, I really am I really feel blessed in my life, and to have these, number one, to have the opportunities to work on some of these characters, like really, like um when we were looking at what do we want to do after Three Jokers, it's like, well, I've completed all my goals. uh, I drew Superman, I did Batman for most of my career, and I drew Swamp Thing. Like those were the three that those like there's a few Marvel characters I would maybe like to draw one day, but I really wanted to tackle this Rook character that I've had, like I said, I've had in my head for years. It's like, now's the time to do it. And without the fans' support and the readers' support and the people who buy comic books, if they didn't buy this stuff and they didn't support it, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm very thankful to everybody who supports my work and likes it. And I hope people will pick up Rook. I know it's something different. It's not Batman, but I'm still going to bring that same visceral energy and action and detail and cool storytelling. And I would just say, like, pick up when the book comes out in April, pick it up, pick up the first arc and get into this. You get to come into the story on the ground floor, and you get to kind of learn this universe and this world and come along on this adventure and see. You'll even see within the pages of how I'm drawing the character different in like the third issue from the first issue, because I'm figuring out, like, things of how I want to draw him and the world. And we got so many cool characters based off of different animals that will make appearances as we go along. That was the one thing with Jeff. He's like, with these animal helmets, we can literally, there's like hundreds of characters we can make because they're all based off of these animals, right? And we can play into the animal aspect of these characters and their look, even though I don't want to make them look necessarily like the animal but there's a little bit of that there. It's like, I'm kind of, with my design language, it's like, I don't know how far to push it. I don't want it to become too cheesy, but I also don't want to be hold back. I want you to be able to look at the character and be like, oh yeah, that guy's a wild boar, or that guy's a bear. I'm thankful that you guys had me on, and we'll definitely do this again. Maybe when the book comes out, we can have another talk and we can go through the book. And
I would love to have you and Jeff, or even like you and Brad, come on and, like you said, go through the first issue. And
yeah, let's do that for sure.
Thanks for being such a sport. My sincerest wishes, best wishes to